Welcome to our video debate for Topic 1, What is Learning and Why Does Theory Matter? We will be debating this topic from three perspectives: neurolist, behaviorist, and finally humanist. When it is all done, we will have some key questions that will hopefully spark some discussion amongst the three theories. Let's first begin with neuralism. When asked the question, what is learning, there is no one correct answer. There exists a multitude of theoretical explanations that attempt to describe the process of taking in, processing, and ultimately using information. I'm not here to tell you that one explanation is inaccurate or outdated, but what I am here to do is explain how a study of the anatomy of the brain can help answer the question of what is learning. Throughout the theory of neuralism, the term intelligences arises frequently. Artificial intelligence, multiple intelligence, emotional intelligence, they all directly use the idea that learning is the ability to acquire and apply new information. That capacity to learn new things and use that information is rooted in our brain's ability to process, accept, reject, and transform information. Take the concepts of chunking and cognitive load. Both Miller and Sweller show that the brain's capacity to store information is limited. We've all been in a situation where new information is being presented to us, and we reach a point where we can no longer retain anything new. The solution has reached its saturation point. Those two theories lend empirical evidence and data to a very vulnerable and relatable feeling. Miller says 7 bits of information, plus or minus 2, and Sweller says 5 to 9, but the point remains that there is a cognitive limit. So why neuralism? Why not behaviorism or humanism? What is unique about neuralism is that it is rooted in the scientific empirical research. From the early and occasionally ethically gray research of Hebb in associative learning to the more recent research of Deutsch in surrounding brain plasticity, there exists hard data to support the theories. Even in the concept of emotional intelligence as presented by Goleman, which discussed the idea of there being intelligence in understanding and processing emotions, this has also been shown to be true in empirical data. The fact remains that if we are answering the question of what is learning, then neuralism's response of it is our brain's ability to process, accept, reject, and transform information is the most reliable answer we have.
The gaps in the neuralism theory are that it is rooted in this Western concept of the hierarchy of scientific thinking. So it doesn't give space for the reflective aspects of learning. It places far too high a stock in the empirical data, and it dismisses the subjective experience of a person. The more traditional aspect of behaviorism has merit. There exists a broad number of learners who thrive under structure and direct instruction. Neuralism puts limits on human process and abilities, but there are always outliers. People who fall beyond the expected cognitive limit are limited by our expectations of what the student's cognitive limit should be.
Learning in behavioral theory is the acquisition of new behavior reactions in environments. Behaviorism is based on stimulus and response. The behavioral learning theory is based on observable response. The stimulus are things that provoke a reaction. Behavioral learning theory provides evidence of change in behavior as the individual responds to the stimulus. The observable results rely on the action of the stimulus. If the students are given the right stimulus, then the teacher will likely get the response they are desiring to achieve. If the stimulus is something the individual wants, it will result in a positive reinforcement such as reward. However, if it's something an individual fears, it results in a negative reinforcement that's a consequence or punishment. Teachers are conditioning students to strive for these reinforcements and how it will be done. The teacher will be able to identify the changes of behavior. Teacher can stimulate the learners by the process of conditioning. It is a technique that is highly useful when learners need more direction. There's frequent of assessment of progress opportunities included. The behavior learning theory reinforces the behavioral response. A positive reinforcement can be used to reward a student's learning for their achievement so they continue to strive for this. A negative reinforcement is used as a consequence or a punishment for learning that needs to be further worked on. Students can use their prior experiences, which can be a very effective development tool. There is an opportunity to provide new goals or work towards new ideas to set behavior goals in an incremental growth scale. This will reinforce the reward behavior for students to work towards those goals.
Unfortunately, the behavioral learning theory fails to recognize the independent and inquiring nature of people. It does not take into account the student's feelings or thoughts. This process has to be continuous as you are working to reinforce behavioral changes. Breaks in this process will negatively affect it and can easily make a waste of time and energy on everyone's part. There is also a gap in regard to the reward and or punishment reinforcements. This requires both the educator and the learner to be invested in this process, and if they are not, it will not be effective. Humanism learning theory became popular during the 1940s when psychologists started to question behaviorism and cognitivism. Humanism learning theory shifted education from educators as directors to educators as facilitators. What is learning with the humanism learning lens? This learning theory focuses on the learner as a whole and as self-determining beings. Humanist theorists believe that people can make their own choices. This is reflected in its focus on learners being in control of their own learning and making their own choices in regards to how they learn and share their learning. Humanism has 3 key contributors, each providing their own aspects to the theory. Each of the contributors emphasizes the importance of building relationships with learners through trust and respect. Malcolm Knowles focused on adult learners and identified 3 key aspects: learning through collaboration, problem solving, and involving learners in goal setting. Carl Rogers emphasized the relationship and that you need to build it with empathy, respect, and congruency for learning to be effective. The most well-known theorist of humanism is Abraham Maslow. He created a hierarchy of human needs. A key component of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is that it acknowledges that there are human needs that need to be met before others are capable. We move from one set of needs to another and are not set in just one. This allows teachers to acknowledge that a learner may not be able to fulfill some tasks if earlier required needs are not met.
One of the key gaps of humanism is that it does not support learners who are not self-driven. Students who require structure to succeed may fall victim to this lack of direction and lack of self-motivation. Additionally, in comparison to a theory like neuralism, which has the data and science behind it, humanism is based simply off of observations and experiences of the theorists. It doesn't have the foundational backing that neuralism does.